Hi guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Pagani design PD1775. I received this watch for free. I don't have to send the watch back, but you guys know the deal by now. It's not going to sway my review one way or another. And if by the end of this review you want to pick one of these up, I will be leaving a link down in the video description. That'll take you right to this watch. That is an affiliate link, so if you guys use that link to purchase this watch, I'll get a little bit of a kickback that just goes right back into the channel, helps keep the channel running. So I really do appreciate the continued support. The retail price for this watch is about $90 US. That's before any taxes or coupons or anything like that. Obviously, Pagani, they do participate in the sales. I've seen this watch down in the $70 range before coupons. So if you're patient, I could see this dipping into the 50s probably. The watch comes in two different colorways that you can see here. They also do give you an option for the newer box if you're into that sort of thing. It's a nicer box for sure, but I wouldn't pay the $10 for it unless maybe you're getting it for a gift for somebody else. The watch case is made of 316L stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal with AR coating, screw down crown, screw down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance, and the watch is powered by the Seiko VK64 Mega Quartz movement. Alright, so let's get into dimensions. Got a case diameter of 37.4 millimeters, case thickness of 12.8 millimeters, 20 millimeter lug width, lug tip to lug tip of 46.3 millimeters, and sized up for my 7.5 inch wrist with two links removed. It weighs about 115 grams. So I think the size on this thing is great. Sub 38 millimeters, sub 47 lug to lug. It's going to fit a lot of wrists. Got your typical 20 millimeter lug width size, so that's great to see. Nice weight. Thickness I think is in check as well. It's got a domed crystal there. Under 13 millimeters thick, but you can see here you got a pretty thin mid case. So it does wear really nice. It does have just a little bit of curve down as well. So yeah, I think they did a really nice job on this watch. I think it wears good. I think it's a good weight. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist. And as you can see, I think it wears great. Really thin mid case there. Nice little turn down to the lugs as well. So it just hugs the wrist nice. Sits nice and flat on the wrist. And I think because of that, it just wears great. The dimensions are just spot on. I have no issues with those either. I think it looks really good. You can see it does struggle a little bit here underneath the oak tree, but really not that bad for a dial like this. Quite surprised with the AR coating on this watch. It's actually pretty decent. Got lots of light play off of the bracelet and the bezel. I think it all looks pretty good. And popping out in some direct sunlight here, you can see still no real issue even with the light right on the dial like that. You got lots of light play off of the dial itself, all the indices. You can see it's a matte black dial. Sub dials look pretty good as well. I think overall as a package it looks pretty good. And it looks good on other straps too. So let's go throw it on some straps and let's get back to this review. And here we are on a Riche canvas strap, army green. This is how I've been wearing it mostly. I think it looks pretty good on this strap. Fits it nicely in my opinion. And here we are on a black, just a simple 2-stitch strap there. Again, I think that actually looks pretty good too. This is off of my Wise Damascus, but you know, any cheap one will look just as nice. And here we are on a mesh strap. You can see how far away from the case the spring bars sit, so it can look unsightly on some watches or on some straps like this one specifically. So just something to keep in mind. No clearance issues obviously, but that's how it'll look on a mesh strap. This is one lifted off of a different Pagani, but I think it looks alright here. And lastly, here we are on a Cincy Strapco SF2. This is a 2-pass nylon strap there, so it's a pretty thin nylon strap, but you can still see 2 layers underneath the watch there, and this thing just sits really, really nice on wrist. Very happy with the way this watch wears. Right, let's go back inside and let's get back to this review. So let's talk about the case finishing. So the case finishing is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. You can see on the tops of the lugs here, you have a really nice, fine satinized brushing. Really nice and consistent actually. I'm quite impressed with that. Flipping it to the case sides here, you do have fully polished case sides. You can see it's not just a straight side down, so it does kind of bow out, and so you get some pretty nice distortion on that case side. I think it looks really nice, and they did a pretty good job with it. I don't really see any issues with the polishing. There's no like streakiness or anything like that. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with it. You can see the transition between the brushed and polished surfaces. Maybe just a teeny tiny soft, but really not a big deal. Flipping it to the crown side here, you do have a signed screw down crown, simple pushers for the chronograph functions, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But again, really nicely done. I got no issues with that. The bezel itself is also fully polished. When you get in there and start nitpicking at that, you can kind of see a little bit of streakiness right here. But other than that, they did a pretty good job with this thing. I'm actually pretty happy with the case finishing on this watch. Flipping it over to the case back here, you have a circular brushed case back, a little bit of polishing there as well. Spec sheet around the outside. Everything is done pretty nice. It's nice and smooth. No sharp corners, no sharp edges or anything like that there. The bottom edge of the case, it's not too bad. Feels like they did knock it down just a little bit. These lug tips, they are a little bit sharp, but really not a big deal, especially with the bracelet on. You can't even tell them. Simple notches to get a tool in there if you ever need to get to the battery. Yeah, overall, very satisfied with the case back on this thing. Overall, very satisfied with the case itself. They did a pretty bang-up job, especially for the price. All right, let's talk about the crystal. First things first, we'll test it for sapphire. It is positive for sapphire, and it's a pretty good sapphire crystal. Again, I'm surprised. Pagani is usually not known to put a lot of AR coating on their crystals. They did a pretty good job on this one. You can see around the edges there is a little bit of a blue tint to it, but really in the middle of the dial where it really counts, I don't notice the blue as much as I do on the edge of the dial. So it's not a very distracting blue hue to the AR coating, and they put plenty of it on there. I'm really happy with the crystal on this thing. It is a very slight double dome, as you can see there. Really slight double dome, but yeah, nicely done. I'm quite impressed with the crystal on this thing. All right, so let's get in. Let's talk about the dial on this thing. There's quite a bit going on here, even though it seems to be a pretty simple dial. So you can see kind of on the outer edge here, you have this raised portion of the dial with a circular pattern on it, and that is where a minute track is printed. I think it looks pretty good. All those little dots there, those are loomed. The loom on this watch is horrible. So I'm not even going to show you guys the loom on this thing. It's really bad. The outer dots, they fade immediately, and the hands are not great either. So yeah, just don't buy this for the loom. The dial itself is a matte black dial, really nice and clean. There's no real texture to it. Applied indices at all the hour markers, even these little tiny ones here at 3 and 9 o'clock, none at 6 o'clock, but that is a nice big date window there. Date is centered in there pretty nicely as well. You do have a secondary minute track, or I guess sub-second track printed around the inside there. A little interesting touch there, but again, nicely done. And you can see here the 12 o'clock index are applied nice and straight, which is always an issue. The alignment on everything seems to be done pretty much spot on. I don't see anything out of alignment besides the chronograph hand, which we'll talk about here in just 1 second. Subdials here, you have your 24-hour subdial at the 3 o'clock, and then you have your chronograph minute counter there at the 9 o'clock. Circular pattern on that as well. It gives a kind of a sunbursty pattern to it. I think it looks pretty good. Sometimes I've seen these where it just looks cheap. I don't really think this looks cheap at all. Simple black printing, simple polished handset on the subdials there. The handset itself, it's kind of a Flieger style handset, so really nicely done, reaching right out to that inner minute track. Nice big bold hour hand as well. I think it all looks pretty good. That chronograph second hand there, ticking along at 5 ticks per second, and again reaches right out to that inner minute track. So overall, the handset I think is done pretty nicely, fully polished. There's no real fluff under the dial or anything like that. It is a slightly faceted handset as well, so you get some nice light play off of it. You get some nice light play off of the dial itself. Overall, I am pretty happy with the way this thing looks. It's actually done pretty nice. You have your Pagani design shield there at the 12 o'clock with the Pagani design text, and then chronograph 100 meters, Japan movement down here at the 6 o'clock. Again, everything is done pretty nice. I do have one alignment issue, and it's pretty bad. That's with that chronograph second hand there. It's off about a half a second. So yeah, not too happy with that. All right, so let's talk about the movement in this thing. So the movement is the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz movement. They are great, they are reliable, they're accurate. I believe the stated accuracy is plus or minus 20 seconds a month, but these things usually run within a couple seconds a month. So I've got no issues with that. About a 3-year battery life, although I do have one in my collection that's over 3 years old and that's still running. So yeah, I've got no issues with these movements. They're great. They have really nice tactile feedback in the pushers as well. So we'll get to that right now. So the top button here, this starts your chronograph. Nice solid click there. Even pressing the chronograph button again to stop it. Again, nice and solid click. and then pressing the bottom button here, this resets everything. It all snaps right back into place. Obviously the alignment is pretty poor on this one, but the alignment on the subdials look pretty good. So yeah, overall I'm very happy with these movements. This one is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown. Good size crown. It's not overly big and it's not overly small. It does have this kind of sharpish edge on it, so when you are manipulating it, it doesn't feel the best, but it's really not that bad at all. First position does nothing. Second position changes the date. We'll get into 20s here. You can see the alignment actually looks pretty good on it. It's not perfect, but it's darn close, I think. Getting to the third position here, this is where you set your time. Everything functions as it should. The hands don't jump or anything like that when you press in the crown, and then the screw in and screw out action of that crown is just ultra smooth. Yeah, really happy with the movement on this thing. I've got no issues with it, especially at these prices. $50 for this watch with this movement. It's excellent. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So the bracelet is actually pretty decent on this. It's 20 millimeters and it tapers down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. You have screw links for adjusting. I think I removed 2 for my 7.5-inch wrist. Brushing on the outsides, polished on the middle. You can see the middle polishing. It's a little sloppy when you get up close to it. That's where they definitely cut some corners. On wrist, you never really notice it though. The end link fitment follows the case curvature just perfectly. The end links are fit in here nice and tight. They are solid end links, as you can see there, in their female pivot end links. So really nothing to complain about there. The tolerances on the bracelet are about what I expected for a watch like this or a bracelet like this. These 5 links, they're supposed to be flexible and bend like this. And so yeah, this one is done pretty good. There's a little bit of jangle to it, but really not unexpected for a watch like this. I think where they really skimped on this is the brushing and the polishing. Obviously, I showed you the polishing earlier. The brushing here on the end link, it looks fine. It matches with the case nicely. Got no issues with that. But on the actual links themselves, the brushing is almost not there. It's almost like a bead blasted. And then the polishing on the side just kind of bleeds over the top edge there. So that's where they kind of skimped on this one. But I gotta say, the bottom edge is nice and soft. You can kind of feel like on the inside edge of these links, these individual links, you can kind of feel a little sharp corner, but it's really not that bad at all. Working our way to the clasp here, we have a clasp that we've kind of seen before, but pretty nicely done, brushed on the outside, polished on the inside. It matches with the bracelet nicely. Big Pagani design branding here. You have a flip lock here, and then you just kind of pull up here. It's all friction based, fully milled on the insides. Nice tight tolerances there and nice tight tolerances here. So it opens and closes pretty good. I've got no issues with that. It is just a little stiff. I'm not going to say it's super stiff, but just a little stiff. It's not like right here. The action is nice and smooth, but then you feel a little bit of resistance right about there. But everything locks into position nicely. You have 3 levels of micro adjust there. So it's not your typical, 3-link style bracelet clasp, which I'm happy to see because those ones are terrible. This one is actually halfway decent. These bottom edges, they're a little sharp. This back edge here is also a little sharp. All these corners here are sharp. That's where they could kind of improve on this design a little bit. The clasp is just a little sharp. It's nice and low profile, and it is comfortable, but yeah, I've felt it a little bit too much with those sharp corners. But outside of a little bit of a sharp corner here and there, and some mediocre brushing on the bracelet, it's actually a pretty comfortable bracelet. I've always been pretty happy with my Pagani 5-link bracelets. It's those 3-link bracelets and any other style that I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, this one is actually pretty good. Nice articulation on these links, and again, nice flex in it too, so makes it nice and comfortable. So there you go, guys. That is the Pagani design PD1775. It's an homage that's been out for a while. It is an homage, I'm going to say that. It's from the MAEN collection, so if you are interested in it, go check out the MAEN collection, M-A-E-N. But yeah, they have a watch that looks very similar to this one. Not really sure the retail price on that one. I don't know, but I know this one is definitely cheaper. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you can get this down into the 50s somewhere. And for that, you're getting a pretty good AR coating. You're getting pretty poor lume, which is expected. A comfortable bracelet, a really nice case. I actually really like the case on this thing. They did a pretty good job on it. It looks very oyster-esque, but yeah, it kind of has its own little flair to it. So yeah, really happy with it. I think the size is good. I think the dial is nice and clean. The clasp is decent. So yeah, it's overall a very solid value for the, I'm going to say $60 that you can probably find this thing pretty pretty easily at that $60 range. So yeah, for that money, I think you're getting a heck of a watch. I think it's an obscure homage. It's still an homage, but it is a pretty obscure homage. No one's going to know what this is an homage of unless they watch this video. So I think that's it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.